I want to address the little things that matter, and that's specifics. One of my heroes is Buckminster Fuller, or the late Buckminster Fuller. He was a brilliant man. He was a source of great inspiration. He's certainly transformed my thinking, showing me how to live life differently. And it's around the specifics, the little things. This is a place where those who suspect they're innately wise, brilliant and powerful come to learn how to transform their lives, one cognition, one realization, and one blinding flash of the obvious at a time. We are the innovators, the record breakers, the world makers and creators of all kinds. We supersede the suppressive worldview of mass ignorance and awaken the strength within. We are waking up to our innate secrets. My name is Dr. Mark Postles, and welcome to the Innate Secrets podcast. Buckminster Fuller, or known as Bucky, is arguably one of the most fascinating and original minds of recent history. He was one of the world's first futurists and global thinkers. He was born in 1895, and Fuller rejected the established religious and political notions of the past and the conventional disciplines of the current universities. He was against the establishment, twice being expelled from Harvard for his dissidence. He was certainly a disruptor of the first degree. Now, he never graduated from higher education, yet he was awarded nearly 50 honorary doctorates for his work in science and the humanities. He authored some 28 books, sold well over 1 million copies. He had over 100 major awards of merit, including the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the US's highest civilian award. Now, he had adhered to a philosophy based on the unity of the natural world and used experiment and intuition as a means of understanding it. So he saw the order in nature and he applied the design to science. And I think he maintained that there's nothing that man has created that is not already there, inherent in nature. So to me, he's the modern day Leonardo da Vinci. He was a philosopher, a designer, an entrepreneur, a student, a scientist, a mathematician. He was an inventor, an artist, a poet, an activist, an author, and an architect. True example of a whole brain person, a real great example of a person who uses all quadrants at the appropriate time. Now, the point that he continued to make and demonstrate by his actions was that one little man can make a big difference. And to this end, Bucky coined the phrase trim tab as a metaphor for his life. In fact, he had this inscribed on his tombstone. He explained it this way, that think of the Queen Mary, which was a big ship in its day. The whole ship goes by and then comes the rudder. And there's this tiny thing at the edge of the rudder called the trim tab. Now this is a miniature rudder on a rudder. And just moving the little trim tab builds a low pressure that pulls the rudder around. So it takes almost no effort at all. So I said that the little individual can be a trim tab. He maintained that we don't have to have huge effort to bring about a global effect. So society thinks it's going right by you and that it's left you all together. But if you're doing dynamic things mentally, the fact is that you can just put your foot out just a little bit and a whole big state of affairs will change. So it's about what it is that you have within your power as a trim tab to be able to influence things from the smallest of detail. So I think it's wise advice for all of us that we develop a rapport and work closely with people that we allow into our world, because therein lies the greatest leverage. And as a saying has often been said, you approach the global problems by acting locally. Because every thought, word and action we make has an effect on those around us. We cannot not influence those around us. So Just as the right thing at the right moment can be like tweaking the trim tab on the person's rudder, their life's direction can be changed forever. And it is often by the very, very smallest of things. Now, for me, my entrance into my profession as a chiropractor came in a trim tab moment. It was a chance meeting with two young guys who were chiropractors, or who were students actually at chiropractic college, and they told me all about this thing. Well, something in that meeting, which only lasted a few hours, absolutely shifted me. It was a pivotal point, and it was a trim tab moment. It was a little thing, and I can't even put my finger on it, but I know that I came out of that meeting a changed person. I came out knowing this is my direction. It's got my name on it. So this little part of a system employs great leverage. So it's not about the big things in life. It's about the little things, the little details. So this is then a challenge to us to design a system that keeps us in integrity. Rita Mae Brown said this way, that she was an American novelist and activist, and she said, look, you cannot invest your life spirit into a compromise. So the essence of this then is having the smallest of things that you do and that you say represent the essence of your being, and making sure that it's really, really clean and clear. So having a list of values is fine, but if you don't have a method by which the values can be implemented, you'll end up being out of integrity and experiencing contradictions in your life. And this is where we can dream, we can hope, we can pray, we can visualize. Until we go to work, until we actually start making things operational, it's a fantasy. We're living in a field of possibilities, but not bringing a grounded reality to it. So every specific thing that you do and every action that you perform must be clearly consistent with your values. So make sure that your purpose is weaved into the time, money, and energy that you spend. And in this context, I'm on the board of Chiropractic College, and there's a philosophical construct, or a series of constructs and principles that runs through the chiropractic viewpoint. And then there's sciences which may or may not have been developed to reflect that. And yet, within every science, if it's a true search for meaning, it will be reflecting, as Bucky found, the whole design that is within nature. And so as a chiropractic college, we want to make sure that we have a consistency of that design, which is the philosophical constructs of the chiropractic viewpoint on life, woven into every aspect of the course. And that feeling, that ethos, that energy is infused into every single person there, from the cleaner to the president, making sure that there's a consistency within the organization. So every little thing that we do and every action that we take is clearly consistent with the values. So it would be, I think, fair to say that people who attain greatness in life are driven by their purpose, and they organize their life down to the finest detail. They live a life that's congruent with their vision. So all activities, no matter how trivial, are consistent with the overriding purpose. And this includes the organizations that they involve themselves in. It includes the structures, the systems, the political outreaches, the foundations, the support organizations that they follow, that they support, have to be consistent with the values. So it might seem rather pedantic to not give to a certain charity, for example, but if that charity is not living by the values that you hold, then you're losing a bit of yourself if you do give to that charity. So it's about being aware of the values that drive you and making sure you support only those organizations that support those values. So having order and systems and procedures and processes in your life is imperative. And this is where, as our discussion is recently on the quadrant 2 part, making sure that we exercise the constraint that a quadrant 2 brings to it, the critical analysis that it brings to it, the detail that it brings to any discussion. And the quadrant 2 part loves to frame things by saying no. And the quadrant 2 part, when presented with an idea, will always reject it to start with. And that gives it space to then work on how the problem can be solved. And that goes down into a smaller space of reasoning to make sure that it doesn't miss any of the detail. So making sure that we systematize our activities with due consideration to the reason why we're doing the activity. And this is where we would suggest a daily, weekly, monthly, and yearly default diary, so that you have your activities segmented and broken down based on the values that they contain and based on the purpose for them, into manageable units that are occupying certain amounts of time. Now, this could be even the most mundane things, from sleeping and waking and brushing your teeth and exercise and meditation and relaxation and your diet and so forth. The organizational structure that you have for yourself and for your life is critical as an expression of who you are. And that regimentation and that discipline is such an important factor. I mean, I have such strong memories of my great aunt who lived to be 100. She didn't want to be 101. She was very keen to be 100, and she lived a magnificent life of order and structure. She would clean a room of the house every day, and Sunday was, in her words, maid's day off. She lived by herself to the last day of her life, and in New York City, and really had the whole place nailed. She knew exactly what was going on around town, what were the changes in Macy's front window at any point in time, and what food they were offering in the food court downstairs. So it was a very intricate knowledge, and a well-read and well-versed and well-traveled individual who saw the joy in the smallest and smallest of things. Always had time for anyone who happened to be across her path, be it from a beggar to a little child to a young teenager to an elderly person. So as Einstein's quoted saying that God's in the details, take care of the details and your dreams will become real. And so often we have big dreams, and it's amazing, it's exciting, and it's fun to have these big dreams. And then we don't pay attention to the detail. So the ability to affect your immediate sphere of influence and their future is profound. And I think this is really where the point of power lies. It's not in the big things that you might do for state and government and the world. It's in the little things. And look at a person like Mother Teresa, who just said, look, I'm just doing my thing, and if you do a little bit of yours as well, then it's going to have an influence on humanity. And that's the influence that we can have in the environment that we create. So, and it can mean the life or death of someone. I have a friend whose funeral I attended, and he was younger than me, but he was full of life and full of enthusiasm and was willing to take on anything. And he went flying with a friend on a light plane, and the plane crashed. And on the analysis after the event, they found that someone who had been repairing the plane at some point in time had left a screwdriver in the fuselage. And that screwdriver, when these guys were doing some aerobatics, and my friend and his friend who was the pilot were doing aerobatics, the screwdriver fell and got caught in one of the wheels that controlled the rear wing flap. That mechanism then got locked, and they went to their death. So one tiny little thing that was not taken care of. The person who was repairing that plane didn't count all their tools when they left the plane after doing the job. And even though that screwdriver was quite rusty, it could have been in there for many, many years, it caused the death of 2 people. So this is a critical component of detail. Look at whereabouts you're violating your values by your lack of attention to detail. Look at at your house. Look at your garage. Look at the things that you have within your study. Even go round and 5 sense your home. Look at it through all the senses. Feel it, smell it, sense it. Because everything you think and say and do has an effect on those closest to you. And every action you take that directly impacts on the person in front of you has an effect on them, possibly for the rest of their life. And it's the little things, it's the everyday events, it's the chance statements that make the huge difference. They can be the pivotal points. They can be the things that are the trim tab for a person and the rest of their life. So the few extra minutes checking in with your family or your team about them and their life makes a major impact on their sense of appreciation. So kind words, inspiring thoughts, and words of possibility are things that turn the world around. They turn people around, relationships around. So remembering the significant events in your acquaintances' lives, follow up on phone calls. When people are a bit fragile, remember that at all times life is rich and it's amazing, it's beautiful, and sometimes people just need to be reminded of that. So I think that attending to these details will bring you more in a given time period than any amount of visioning, goal setting and planning. And it's not that they're not important, but the impact that you have on the future of the world lies with those closest to you, those people immediately around you. It's not about the big heroic acts, the untold riches of material things and lofty New Year's resolutions, but the enactment of your huge vision involving those closest to you, along with your commitment to it, which provides the biggest impact. And they feel it. So look at the areas in your life where you're racing ahead and with the big picture and not attending to the essential detail. That will make a huge difference. So do the 5 sensing sessions. Look at how you're influencing via your environment. And make sure that you drop empowering words of hope into those around you. Let us show you how to fire your brain in ways that serve you so that you can be confident, connected, and bring joy and passion into what you do every day. Get a free copy of my book, The Innate Model. Go to theinnatemodel.com/free book.